Hi, I'm Mary Logsden, and once again, I am here at your library. Today at your library, I've invited a couple of guests who are going to give us a little bit of an insight into some special programming that's occurring here at your library in April. Stick around. So as I said, I have a couple of guests here today with me, two people I've worked very closely with for, as it turns out, months now. Both Casey and Jeremy from here in Ames have been working with me for a number of months to develop and to facilitate library programming that has really been terrific so far, and we're eager to get some more information out about it. Before we jump into it though, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves. Casey, first, tell us who you are and what your role here is.
So I'm Casey Vance. I'm the executive director at the Ames Historical Society right across the street. And we provide programming, historical programming to the community, exhibits, research assistance, and just help preserve and share the history of Ames.
Terrific, terrific. And also we have here Dr. Jeremy Best from Iowa State University. I gave away a little bit of who you are and where you work, so tell us a bit about your role here in Ames.
So I'm a professor of modern German history at Iowa State in the history department, where I do research and write and teach and do all the things university professors are expected to do, I guess.
Well, one of the things that I'm delighted that you've been doing is to come on over to our side of town to really get the ball rolling on what's turned out to be a terrific series of programs this spring, both in March and April, called German, Iowa, and the Global Midwest. Jeremy, do you want to just give us a little bit of background about this project?
This project grew out of some work done by some colleagues of mine at the University of Iowa in the history department and the German department there. A project they began a couple years ago to really try to recover for Iowans the history of German immigrants in the state and how embedded Germanness had been in the state. That grew into a traveling exhibition called German Iowa from Town to Town, which the Ames Public Library was hosting a couple weeks ago. It's now moved on to its next location. But in that exhibit, we set out to partner that here in Ames with some historical programming, some community programming. And that's why, as you said, I came across town because while the history department is interested in doing more, and the university in general doing more with the community, it really, the kinds of things that we were able to do would have been impossible without the collaboration of the library and the history center, because we don't work with the community in the same ways, and we don't have the same embedded roots. And so I think that really showed the possibilities of what we could do together.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm just really thrilled that you did involve the library. I think you probably contacted Casey first, and I know that then the two of you came sometime late last summer here to the library, and we started to brainstorm about what was possible. As you said, the exhibit itself has already left town. It was here for 3 weeks in our gallery, and it was really interesting, Casey, because you also were able to mount some displays about some individuals, German Iowans from here in Story County.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to also show the history of Germans in Ames and Story County. We featured 3 businessmen who had German roots: Joe Gerbrocht, who owned a lot of theaters in Ames; George Judish, who had a pharmacy on Main Street for about 50 years; and the Friedrich family, who started the Friedrich Realty Company. So.
And I can attest to the fact that throughout the day, every day for 3 weeks, there were individuals coming into the library and heading up to our gallery on the second floor to see the exhibit, and then to take some time reading the historical information on the panels, which will continue to go around the state, as you said. We then had several programs within the weeks that the exhibit was here. And were there any highlights for you from the programs that we've had already? Did anything stand out?
I just feel like all of them were really, really well attended. I was really happy with the turnout and how each of them turned out. I really liked the one that was on that Saturday with a celebration of food and music. I think everybody really enjoyed that.
I think what I appreciate about all of the sessions was the number of community members who came out and told their own stories, which was part of the whole point,
Right.
who wanted to share with either our presenter or with just people around them things about ways in which they felt connected to their German heritage
Yep.
and their American heritage, because that's part of the whole point of what we were talking about, is that this is part of America and part of Iowa. And so my grandmother cooked these foods,
Yes.
or my grandmother spoke German, my mother stopped speaking. These sorts of stories that really, when you do history and when you connect it locally, really can drive home the value and the good work that folks like the Ames History Center do, where we can really learn about big ideas, the immigrant story, but in a local context or a small way to help us connect with it. So I thought, I can't really pick one. They were all like favorite children, right? But I certainly agree that the turnout was great and the actual community presence was wonderful. So
I agree, and actually, I can just tell you, anecdotally, the kinds of feedback that I received from individuals was entirely positive. I mean, people were actually thanking me. Thank you for doing this sort of programming. Thank you for. I think they appreciated that there were multiple opportunities to come and to learn, and like you said, talk with one another. And in fact, there was one. We did ask people to give us some feedback, and one person had written, "I have German ancestors. I'm interested in anything that puts the patterns of German immigration into the larger context." So right there, I would say we met our goals. And actually, the reason we're here today talking about this is because we're not yet finished. We still have 2 more programs that I think are really unique, and I want individuals to come on out to attend them, and we're eager to talk about them as well. So we have one program coming up on Tuesday, April 18th, and that one is called Waiting with Packed Suitcases, European Jewish Refugees, 1938 to 1957. Would you want to tell us a little bit about what we can expect that evening?
Sure, and we have a really wonderful opportunity because the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum has a program where their staff members and their fellows can be subsidized to come out to communities, to campuses. It's the campus outreach program. But if you get them into your community, they're more than happy to be connected with the community. And so we have a very unique opportunity where Dr. Kiara Krego-Schneider, an expert on Jewish refugees after the Holocaust, is going to be giving us a very informative talk about the refugee crisis that affected Jews. Actually, they suffer through 2 crises. One right before the Second World War, in which many Jews realized they want to get out of Germany and Austria and have trouble finding places to go. And then after the war, when there are about 7 million refugees of various backgrounds in German camps under American and British and French supervision, that are looking for places to go as well. And so Dr. Krego-Schneider is going to give us a sort of overview of that and then connect the 2 stories really to help us understand the historical context of immigration and refugees around the Holocaust.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And that will be here at the library on Tuesday, as I said, April 18th at 7 p.m. here at the library. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity again, and it demonstrates the value of a partnership between Iowa State University and Ames Public Library, Ames Historical Society, in that we have an historian of this caliber, of representing a museum far away from us, who is going to be able to bring perspective, expertise here to the Ames community. So we really encourage people to come out. After that, then a week following, we are going to host our last program as a part of this collaboration, and it's called Iowa News During the Holocaust, a History Unfolded project. And I know, Casey, you have been working diligently on this project, as we all have, to set it up so that it will be successful. What can people expect when they come to this History Unfolded event?
History Unfolded is a national project, and it's online. People all across the country can look up Holocaust events in their local newspapers and then post them to this website. And so that way, through this website, you kind of see the whole national picture of how the Holocaust different events were reported across the country. So what we're doing here in Ames is kind of a workshop. So we'll give a little bit of background about the project and show people how you can find the news articles and upload them, and then we'll let people actually work on it. We have some laptops available for people, or people can bring their own, and so we'll actually walk them through how to do the project, and hopefully people will leave with the process in place so that they can go home and continue uploading articles.
And I know that you have had some experience with the History Unfolded project also, and this is a project that is being hosted by the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah, so
in
it's
DC.
So one other point is that this is part of sort of, we're coming up on Yom HaShoah, which is on the Jewish calendar, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and so this is part of a Holocaust Remembrance Day sort of season that we're doing here in town. But what happens at the Holocaust Museum is it's curated, so they have staff there who have selected certain specific historical events that they recognize as part of American history and the Holocaust in order to bring this connection again between what people often think of as a purely European event and help demonstrate that it's a global event. And I've had some experience. I had students at Iowa State work with it, and they had a really great time. And in fact, some of the articles that we came across in preparing it were actually uploaded by my students. There's a real local connection of newspaper work, and one of the things that's important is that there's very limited material from particularly Ames papers, but also local Iowa small town papers. So my contact with the folks working at the Holocaust Museum are very excited about the numbers of possibilities that we can bring in and really demonstrate that, unfortunately, that the Holocaust was in fact an event that received coverage in American newspapers in general, and yet still received this sort of apathetic response, or this I guess a willful ignorance, which is unfortunate, but part of what I think will help us as Iowans understand our past as well.
Now, for those who are wondering, okay, so how would you even locate a small town newspaper that was published in Iowa in 1939? So, of course, that's the work that historians are engaged in all the time. What's special about this project is that it's giving us an opportunity to find out about newspapers that have been digitized, and so there are a number of them that are on the website of History Unfolded project. And so what we three have done is kind of set the stage and begun to look at the Iowa newspapers. So on that evening, we will be showing folks this great archive of newspapers that are available. And as you said, Casey, we hope that folks will just kind of get the spark of the excitement of doing their own research, learning about this period, and then choose to contribute on their own even after our event. But in addition to the newspapers that are online, we always are happy to get the plug out there that we do actually have the Ames newspaper on microfilm here at the library, a continuous run from, I guess it was the Ames Intelligencer, am I right about that?
1880s, yeah.
1880s to today on microfilm. But for that evening, we have not figured out a way to make our one microfilm reader work for that event. So we won't be looking at the Ames newspaper, but we will be looking at other newspapers that have been digitized and are available on this website, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I think that if I can comment, one of the things you reveal is the sort of way that a great community library like Ames Public Library is sort of caught in between, because a lot of these digitized ones are smaller libraries where they've got access to grants and support specifically to recover their collections, which are in more peril than the Ames Public Library's collections. And then the other end, the much larger newspapers, larger towns, larger libraries where they're digitizing. And so Ames Public Library and the Ames Intelligencer and the Ames Daily Tribune and the Ames Evening News and all these newspapers are sort of, because of our community size, kind of caught in between, because nobody, potentially the Ames Public Library, if it really focused, could spend a lot of money on doing that, if that was the only thing they wanted to do, which I don't think is the only thing they should do, but there's not money to be given to a place like this to do it directly. So I think maybe in a small way we can raise awareness of how local history can be preserved. I mean, we don't want to give up on the hard copies because those are important too, but a digitized collection is much more usable nowadays in many ways. So, well,
I think what is so it's going to be so interesting to see how individuals who come to the program on Monday, April 24th, just to see their awareness grow as to how the events of the Holocaust were reported in local newspapers, and hopefully draws, just learn about what Iowans were reading and think about how that influenced their actions, their attitudes at that time, and I guess making a plug for the study of history, cause people to stop and think about how that relates to our experiences today. Which I think is what we really hope will happen when we're engaged in public history in this way. So that program as well on April 24th will be at 7 o'clock here in the Ames Public Library in the auditorium on the first floor. In addition, Casey, I know that you have a World War II exhibit that is ongoing at the History Center. So what do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so it'll be up through the end of September, so there's still plenty of time to come see it.
Okay.
And we really focus on the Ames impact of World War II. So we talk about how local Ames people helped the effort, soldiers from Ames, canning, farming, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a really great exhibit.
Okay. And do you want, before we leave, Jeremy, do you want to just mention a couple of the events? Because basically this program on History Unfolded chooses, I think, 9 different significant events.
Well, actually, the website, if folks visit it, there are 31 events at this time.
Okay.
And they're continuing to add to that. Now, for our project, we're sort of trying to focus in.
Okay.
We selected, get a sense of what we're going to do with the community 9, which we'll probably narrow down further. But so there are 31 events. Examples.
31.
One of the most Iowa-centric event is that in 1941, just about a month, if I don't want to get my dates wrong, but just about a month before American entry into World War II, Charles Lindbergh, the famous pilot, came to Des Moines and gave an America First speech, which was both, let's say, subtly and explicitly anti-Semitic, and subtly and explicitly linked anti-Semitism to American isolationism. And while there were certainly people who felt some of this isolationist resistance to entering the war, it's important that a significant segment of that population was also inspired by either anti-immigrant or a general, or more specifically anti-Semitic positions. That's one example. Other examples are news reports, and this is part of the sort of myth that Americans have told themselves that didn't get covered in the news and that there wasn't any myth. But there are news reports that come out in 42, 43, 44, even before liberation of the camps, about events in Poland or in Hungary or in other countries about deportations of Jews to death camps. And not just sort of Jews are being deported to who knows where, but explicit reports that are smuggled out of Auschwitz or smuggled out of the ghettos of Poland. And so these kinds of events also, they do receive coverage. We've found them even in some of the smaller town Iowa newspapers. And so we are confronted with a much more difficult question than, Americans didn't know, only FDR knew, but we're much more difficult question of what did Americans do with this information and how did they respond? And I think that there is reason to say, well, the United States responded with a lot of selflessness in certain ways, but there's also a why wasn't there more public pressure to do something specific about it? And so it's a much more complicated question than even we want it to be, and I think that's part of what history brings to almost any question, is that good history, everything's far more complicated than, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand it. We can't understand it, just means that in fact, understanding it is important because it's complicated.
Well, and I really appreciate, again, the fact that because of the partnership that we've entered into here now for almost a year, where we first conceived of this pretty complex series with multiple different opportunities to learn. I'm just really thrilled to see it kind of come to its full fruition here, and we're going to have the 2 more programs, and I think that one of the things that has really stood out for me is that there have been a lot of people in the community who have come to more than one of our events. And I think that will lead to greater understanding and awareness, and as you said, just a deeper appreciation for the fact that you're not just going to learn everything you need to know, obviously, in just one lecture or from reading one book or having one conversation. And so that we hope that people will come to the library for both of these events, continue to think about the topics that were raised in the German Iowa and the Global Midwest series, and let us know what they think about this kind of programming here at the library and give us their feedback. I want to thank you so much because it's been a pleasure to work with both of you. We've also been really fortunate to have the Story County Genealogical Society partner with us to help get the word out about the programming that we're doing. And I would like to acknowledge that the Ames Public Library Friends Foundation has supported our efforts as well. And it's just been a terrific collaboration. I'd like to think we'll do something again.
I'm sure we will.
Together.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly this level of programming, but who knows? Maybe after the dust settles a little bit, put our minds together to do some more. So thanks so much for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you for the next 2 programs in the German Iowa and the Global Midwest series.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks. And now just stick around and we'll show you some of the new materials that have just recently been added to the library's collection. Well, I'm just so happy that Casey and Dr. Vest were here with me today to talk about the terrific collaboration that has led to the slate of programs and the exhibit here at the library this spring. If you're watching this program on the City of Ames Channel 12, glad to have you here. I want to remind folks, though, that you can also see past episodes of At Your Library and Jerry's program, Well Read, as well as all of the programming that is produced for the City of Ames on the City of Ames YouTube channel. So check that out as well. And don't forget to look at the library's Facebook page if you're wondering what's going on, and if you want to tell us what you're thinking about what's going on here at the library. That's one of the many ways that you can certainly communicate with us here at Ames Public Library. Thanks so much for your attention. Thanks for coming to the library. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop by. Once again, this is Mary Logston at your library.